Okay, recording.
Okay, so welcome everybody. So, we decided to have this, Debbie Goodharts and I were talking and we were talking about planning some activities. And she said, wouldn't it be nice to have talking with the rabbi? And it morphed into this huge thing to having dessert with Chaim and Suzie. And then I was on another call with Lona Adler and Mira Ohrenlichter, and we pulled more ideas together. And it turned into having dessert with Chaim and Suzie. Now, I apologize, not all of you got our surprise. Now, I will admit, most of you did not RSVP, but I decided, these are really trying times, and I thought everyone could really use a treat. So most of you, not all of you, and I apologize for those who didn't, I promise you in the future, got little treats from White Plains Bake Shop. It's Parov, packed with gloves on, and I wore a mask. And Meira and I delivered 40 bags. We literally I just got back about 5 minutes ago. So Meira, thank you so much. She would park, I'd run in, got a really good workout.
Thank you. I'm running in right now. I'll be like in a normal computer in a minute, but it was fun. It was definitely fun.
Godly work. I mean, this was unbelievable. I shouldn't use that word, godly work. She did an amazing job.
Judy, so anyway, we went to Florida to deliver our bag. Thank you.
Oh, it's a shul pace. Hey, I'm into that. That would be great. So I want to welcome all of you. We have really such an amazing turnout. We have 31 people signed in tonight. And I want to just welcome all of you. I would welcome you all individually, but I know the rabbi has, Marv to go to and Marv. So you know what? We got to pack this in, and we're all nosy. We want to know everything we can find out about the martyrs. So we made up a list of questions, and we gave it to them in advance. And some of you may know these stories, some of you may not. And if you don't, you're really in for a treat, because this is a very special couple, and they're adorable. And so I gave you the questions. Do you want me to read them, or maybe you have them in front of you?
I don't have them in front of me.
Oh, okay, wait. Let me get them
I thought this would be more of a game show format, but I'll be okay.
Hold on, wait. I apologize, guys. I would have been more organized, but
all good. While you're looking, I know I get to speak first for everybody who's on this call and so many people who are not on the call. Just firstly, thank the whole MOFIA organizing committee that is always churning out ideas and thinking about each other, and led by Judy, who's just full of the energy and commitment to making this a community of folks and members over 50 in action, can come together. So Judy, Hamon.
Also, Judy, before you start, we just wanted to, in the name of feeling such a family feeling with everyone. So we did want to share with you, thank God everyone's fine, but our daughter Ayala did have eye surgery on Monday. It's been a little bit thick time for us. Thank God she's a bit miserable right now, but doing well. Everything went well. So in the midst of that, and just purposely, we decided we were just going to really be as spontaneous as we could tonight. But for those who didn't know, thank you for your good wishes, and thank God we're in a good place.
It's one of two surgeries.
She's going to have another surgery in 2 weeks on the other eye, but thank God everything's looking good.
Good. We were thinking about thank you for doing this in the middle of all this, and hope she enjoys the treats, and that'll make her.
Thank you.
Okay, so I found, so we always see Rabbi and Suzie in shul, and most of us see them in shul. And, you always wonder, how did this couple meet? I mean, they're so cute. They have 7 kids. How did they meet? So Suzie, Chaim, which one of you wants to start with how you actually met?
I told Chaim that at our Shabbos table, when this question gets asked, I usually answer it. So now for this, he has to answer it.
So the Hebrew Institute of Riverdale has a 50-inch mechitza, and because of that, I could actually see on the other side of the mechitza. And I came as a young rabbi. I was just 23 when I took the pulpit there as an assistant rabbi, and I met Suzie and her family pretty quickly. at that point, it was actually, we always, we think back about it, but my first Shabbos in Riverdale, this is a good story. My wife tells me, Chaim, it's wonderful, so good. I'll see you in September. I came in July. I'll see you in September. I'm going off on vacation. We didn't have this conversation beforehand, right? So, okay. And so the first thing that happened the first rabbinic officiating act I got to do was for Shalom Zachar for Susie's nephew. It was the very first thing that I got to do. And then a few days later, when we, at the bris, this is actually so strange how this happened. They were giving out the rolls of kvaterim to bring the baby in, and there was all the siblings. And so it was all my future brothers and sisters-in-law. They said, the young rabbi, Rabbi Marta, let him be a kvater too. So they had basically acquired me as a member of the family against my will. They making me carry this newborn baby as a member of the, and so that was it. I was hooked. So I was connected to the family that way. Suzie was younger than I am. She still is younger than I am. She hasn't caught up yet.
Much younger.
And so she was studying in Israel that year. And when she came back, she caught my eye. And I guess a few months into that second year in the pulpit there, we decided to go on a date.
Well, he had one rule. He had one rule for himself when he took the job, and that he would never date someone from the congregation.
I should clarify. Susie's sister Paula, who was my age, we were both in the same high school class, so she was busy trying to set me up with all of her friends, and it was like it didn't work. None of those dates worked for me. And then I realized I didn't need to, to have date Paula's friends. I found this one over here.
The rule you only break once.
Yeah, you only break the don't congregate rule once. Because I knew that if this relationship ended badly, I was a goner. So that was good. And honestly, I made sure to speak to get permission from Rabbi Weiss to be able to date a congregant. So
I know that I mean, as a rabbi's daughter, I remember my father telling me that when he was a young single rabbi, he had that same rule because he was so nervous if it didn't end well. You see them, in the shul, it's not a good situation.
The world has changed. Our children think that our courtship is scandalous.
It is scandalous. I could probably get brought up on charges. God forbid. But so for that reason, we made sure we dated for 6 weeks before we got engaged. So that was good.
Really? You got engaged after 6 weeks?
It was
10
we
weeks.
held off.
On my way out to our first date, my father, who many of you here knew, and who was a very relaxed, easygoing guy, on our way out to our first date, my father turned to me and said, 9 months, Suzie, 9 months you're going to go out with this boy before you think about getting serious with him. I started laughing. But my first date, I go, what are you talking about? And he goes, it's not easy being married to a rabbi. A rabbi's wife, it's not an easy life. You got to think about it. 3 weeks later, I love him. I want to marry him. So it took another 3 weeks for him to start breathing again and get his permission. So, yeah.
So we started dating in January and we were engaged by Purim. That's what happened.
So when thinking about each other, what is the one thing that truly amazes you about your spouse?
Amazement and wonderment. It's true. You sent me that question in the email.
I know. These were questions that were sent in by our audience.
Right.
You had a day to prepare for this.
Let me go first.
No, I'll start. I think what amazes me most about you is that you engage with everybody that you encounter with. You find a place inside of you which is love, and you share that with whoever you're engaging with. Except for some rotten kids who pushed in front of us in a line one time at an amusement park. Besides that, that is, and I find that amazing and wonderful about you.
Yeah. Oh, this is better than our anniversary. This is so nice. What's amazing about Chaim? One of the things. I think Chaim is Chaim's the most authentic person I think I've ever met.
That's the thing about authenticity. If you can fake that, you can fake anything.
Right. Right. But in all seriousness, no, I think, you know, he is who he is. You know, he doesn't stand on ceremony, and his beliefs are authentic. And when he hears things, he takes it in an authentic, real way. He's not what I call a pedestal rabbi. I think that's always been a thing that's saved our family and has been something we've all been very grateful for, that we could just be who we are because he is who he is. So that's something I know, especially in this position, is not something I take for granted.
Thank you.
That's very nice. So Chaim, why did you decide to become a rabbi? You know, how did you feel that this was your core? When did you feel that this was your calling?
So I think that there was something in me that firstly always wanted to do the right thing. And when I was younger, I had some sense that leading the religious life was the right thing for me to be doing. We grew up in Virginia. None of my kids and my friends and my classmates in the day school, which I attended, were, you know, especially observant. And I kind of sort of stepped into sometimes made a little goody two shoes holier than thou kind of role. But I sort of adopted for myself a sense of an ownership of my religious life in a pretty strong way. I think partially being a grandson of a rabbi probably, you know, had its impact on me. And when I attended Yeshiva High School, I really was drawn to some very charismatic figures, especially Rabbi Riskin, who I in many ways wanted to follow and learn from, and kind of found my way, inextricably saying this is what I want to be doing. In 8th grade, when I said goodbye to all my classmates in elementary school, and I told them I was going to yeshiva in New York, they said, "Oh, you can become a rabbi." And I was, no. I protested many times, which I realized was the Lady Death protest. I don't know if we can say that anymore. Actually, who knows if I got it. And so I think I had that sense already at that point, and kind of stayed with me. It's always stayed with me that way.
So you went to Yeshiva High School. Which school you went to? You dormed in New York?
I dormed in Riverdale. The tallest building in Riverdale is the Century Apartment Building, which is just like the southern end of Riverdale. And that was just opened and empty. And they were happy to rent out an entire half of a floor to a yeshiva for its boys to stay in. And after a year and a half and the rest of the building filled, they were 2.5 years. They were more than happy to try to find a way to get us out of the building because we weren't exactly the best occupants that they could have. But I lived in the dormitory there, and what's now the Tells Yeshiva dormitory, which is right across from the entrance to Wave Hill. So that building was actually Shenkai Sheikh's wife's estate. And Manhattan Hebrew High School, Rabbi Riskin's high school, bought that facility, and that was where we had. That's where we went to school. So I was there for 3 years.
So when you and Suzie decided you're looking
Judy.
Oh yes, Lana.
When the yeshiva left the Century building, that apartment I rented for my first office. That's where my
office was. On the first floor on the right-hand side?
That's right.
So let me ask you, Chava, there was one of the apartments that David Frisch threw a frozen salami through the wall into the next room. That's how paper thin the walls were in this fancy building, the Century. Did you notice that there was like a missile hole in the wall, or no?
I saw a lot of things.
Yeah, right, okay.
That's very cute, Lana. Who would have known? So how did you end up in White Plains at the Hebrew Institute?
Wow. So I was a rabbi for 3 years in Riverdale. And honestly, I had been in many roles in my life, a sort of a second in assistant positions, and I felt safe in those positions. And I think I decided for myself, and with Suzie's encouragement, you know what, I need to really strike out on my own as a rabbi, and sort of gain my own confidence as a rabbi. And so we took a position in Providence, Rhode Island.
You also talked about out-of-towners.
Yeah, and I liked out-of-town life a lot. I went into the rabbinate. Let me talk about this. I went into the rabbinate partially because I wanted to serve, the types of communities in which I had my own experience, like Richmond. My aunt and uncle lived in Lawrence, and they attended Beth Shalom there, which is, a fancy kind of shul. And I kept on saying to myself, when I become a rabbi, I don't want to be a rabbi of a Beth Shalom. I'm looking to be a rabbi in a small town kind of place. And so we had the opportunity to move to Providence. I was there for 5 years. It was in many ways very fulfilling and in many ways very frustrating. And at some point we realized it was time for us to move on. And I was looking for, what kind of place could meet that criteria of being like an out-of-town kind of feel to it. But not be out of town. That was my goal, right? So, because we already had Shira and Ari, and Akiva was on the way, and we did actually spend some time in West Hartford and interviewing in that shul. At the same time, we had a call from Roxanne and Eric Levine, who were old friends of ours, and they mentioned that there was a position opening up here. And so we took the opportunity to try to get to know it, and then the rest happened. Thank God.
Had spent Shabbos with Marilyn and Ezra. Marilyn,
you remember that? And
host, that's right.
They were our host that first Shabbat, right?
Marilyn, did we clean up after ourselves? Can you remind me?
I'm going to unmute Marilyn. Marilyn, you remember that?
But I remember that Suzie almost didn't come for that Shabbos because Ari had a temperature.
He was sick. He was with my mother, sick as
and you were afraid to leave him. And I said to you, but I have a crib here upstairs. You can bring him anyhow. And you didn't know, yes, no, maybe, etc. The end was your sister Paula and her husband stepped in and said they would watch him. And that's how you both came.
Yeah.
Right.
So what did you think when you met them, Marilyn?
Well,
what did you think when you met them?
I was quite impressed. Well, we had met the rabbi before. Bernie will tell you, we were at the what committee it was, but we had interviewed the rabbi and we'd met him before. And I think it was this rabbi. I don't always remember everything. Asked about his wife. And the rabbi responded by saying, my wife was born to be a Rebbitzin.
Oh, no. Wow, now I'm really mad at him. He said that.
Yeah. So we got a rabbi and a Rebbitzin.
So I do know that I was very fortunate in terms of my own, time in the process here with the shul, that Rabbi Bomser is a very fine rabbi, was also a candidate for the position, and I understand he came on a Shabbos,
a snowstorm,
a snowstorm that blew everything out. So I felt, it's true, I did daven for 10 hours to make the snowstorm happen, but
well, you know what? My mind had been made up, and when the weekend that Rabbi Bomser was coming, I went to Florida.
Wow.
My mind was made up. So
he's a very fine fellow.
I'm sure he is. I don't know that about it. But I had made my decision.
So,
I don't know whether Ezra had made his. But
you had decided not to become a rabbi. What do you think you would have become instead?
What his mother wanted him to become, or what he would want to become?
Both, actually. We'd love to hear what his mother wanted him to become.
So it's very interesting that there's this thing about rabbis' children very often who just desperately don't want their children to go anywhere near the rabbi.
Judy,
yes, and I like your picture of that.
Look, but there's also a generational thing. My grandfather was a rabbi of a difficult kehillah in Brooklyn, or at least so I understand. A lot of folks who just didn't know how to treat their clergy in a way that made them felt valued, which is thankfully, I have such a bracha every day. I know that I have the bonds that I have with all of you. So I think that a lot of my aunts, especially, did not want anybody to be a rabbi in the family. My mother just wanted to make sure that I didn't just trap myself in ways. So she encouraged me when I was in college. I started taking some computer courses, and finally I just said to them, because they wanted me to have a backup, and I said, what other profession spends most of their time in college preparing for the backup? So I just said, I'm not doing that. And I ended up going for a degree in Jewish history, which of course is very valuable. I use it every minute, not at all. But computers was one thing I was considering. At one point I said maybe an optometrist. That was kind of made up in my head. And I think it's just another element of me, I think, would like to be doing some counseling. In fact, I might be doing some training in that regard as well. Because that's obviously a related and parallel kind of field, but that's
evolved. I think that's evolved over the years.
Yeah.
The desire to do more serious counseling.
So what have you found, Chaim, to be the most rewarding thing, one of the most rewarding things about being a rabbi?
I would say it's, I might have shared this at some point or another with the congregation, and I try to teach it to my students at Chovevei as well, that I think I went into all this because, I said, because you have to love God and you have to love the Torah, which you need to do it as well. But you can't be a rabbi unless you love the people. And then when you love the people, then you want to share with them, things that matter. So Torah matters and God matters. But and if you ever see a rabbi who's basically pounding his congregation because he loves the Torah, without you get a feel he doesn't really love his congregation very much. So I think that's a trouble, right? So for me, I think what's most gratifying for me is the relationships with people on the screen right now, and that's deeply powerful and real for me. And that's what's been so hard, of course, for all of us these past months, when relationships can have to happen at a distance, and sometimes, sometimes or every month or 2 months when you have a communication because you're not all together, and we have to work on that. I got to work in more of that contacting, but that's where my great satisfaction, I think, is.
And Suzie, what about you? What has your greatest satisfaction of being a Rebbitzin?
The covered.
Yeah.
Covered.
I think it's and look, I often now am involved in these different Rebbitzin conferences and on panels and stuff, and I wish I could say this was a common experience that other rabbis' wives have, but I think there's a feeling of just being cared for, that you walk in, I feel we're very blessed that we walk into shul, we walk into a room in the community, and you feel like there are people who are there to love your children and love you and are rooting for you. It's like you have this team behind you that's rooting for you. And I imagine there are times that we do things that make people unhappy, or that, that we disappoint people. And, those are especially painful when you realize that you've done that. But the overall feeling that in the end, people are wanting you to succeed and wanting your happiness and join you in your joy is, that's like a very powerful thing to walk around each day feeling that you have that with you.
And you could see just from the turnout.
I'll say also for me, that I feel very blessed that the shul's allowed me to also have my own path, that for me as a therapist, and, to support me in me, my own career, and me fulfilling, my dreams that are part of the shul and also separate, which is also very
Now, not everyone knows what you do outside the shul. They think you're just, you know.
Susie's a concert pianist.
Oh, that's what
it's a hidden thing. We actually don't even have a piano. That's how good she is. She can play.
So I'm a social worker, and 3 days a week I work at Westchester Day School when it's open. And I have a private practice for the past 12 years that I also do part-time. So those are my two primary. Usually in the summer, I'm also working in camp, which this summer we're closed. But that's what I do outside the shul.
And you mentioned these Rebbitzin panels. I'm just fascinated by that.
Yeah, there's some other interesting things I've been able to be part of. I do some mentoring of rabbis' wives. And I also, Chovevei has asked me to mentor rabbis' wives that are out in the field, and also YU and the OU run these Yarchei Kalas, these Rebbitzin conferences. And they've, there have been times where I've asked to speak with the mostly younger rabbis' wives about, whatever their concerns are or their experiences are, and try to share our experience and give them a little chizuk and some strategies.
And you've grown a magnificent family. I mean, your kids are each one nicer than the next. 7 kids, for not all of you who don't know. How's that been? I mean, having 7 kids.
We're so tired. We're all back. They're all living with us again.
I was going to say, and you have
We're so
now.
tired.
I mean, you actually got a room there that you could talk in alone. That no one's going to do.
Once we were banished by our grandson from the deck, so we found a room in here.
So, how did your kids feel about being rabbis' children?
Mm-hmm. What do you think?
I think firstly, it's a part of their identity, and I don't think any of them are too damaged by it, which is really good. Yeah, but
they don't need years of therapy for it.
Exactly. We believe in therapy no matter what.
Yes.
So put it on the list. There's always gonna be something that's good at therapy.
So I can't tell you what's happening in those sessions and what's really being revealed there. But I would say that, at least and I could be wrong, but I think that they feel, and this is part of who they are, and blessed by being in a community where, again, they can know other places where being a rabbi's kid has been hell, because people are judgy and tough or mean-spirited, and we thank God every day that this kahila, which has grown here, is one which maintains a respect for the reality of a family and its kids, and also I think seems to take pleasure in all the kids growing in the shuls, including ours, maybe even especially ours.
I think we try to be thoughtful parents as best as we can. I mean, I think we very early on made a decision that we were never going to say to any of our kids that they needed to do something because they were the rabbi's child. Like, if they needed to do something, it's because they were our child or it's our family value, but try not to sort of bring the community and definitely not in a negative way as a pressure on them. I think we also tried to have, family time that was sacred. So at some point we said, okay, if we're having guest Shabbos lunch, let's try to have Friday night just us. And I think overall, I think they really, look, I don't think it's a coincidence when at Shira's wedding, when they were trying to figure out who was going to be giving kibbudim at the Sheva Brachas, Shira wanted Ezra Berkowitz to get a kavod. He was like, that was important to her. To me, that's a big testament of how she felt about the people in the shul in general, what Ezra represented, that love, that she felt. So I guess that's a good sign so far.
Absolutely. So in thinking about the shul, Chaim, the shul's grown tremendously since you've come to the community. I mean, I remember when we first came to the shul, there were like maybe 4 kids in the whole shul. Now it's like you can't walk without banging into 1 million kids, which is amazing, I guess. What do you consider your greatest accomplishment since becoming a rabbi at the Hebrew Institute?
I think it's hard to say. It's not my accomplishment, right? And that's probably the awkwardness of the question. I take great pleasure and good feeling about having being a chelek, having a portion in something that I've been able to see grow with me and all the lay partnerships that we've had over the course of the years, and just to find people that are coming. In some ways, the greatest accomplishment is to see the quality of people that just simply choose to be members of our community. That says something about the type of community we've all helped create together. The values that we have that I think are pretty explicit at this point, and the sense of community and the caring that goes on here, and the teaching, the learning, but there's something that attracts a certain quality of person that makes me feel very accomplished. That's for sure. But more than that, I can't point to a specific thing that I take unique pride in.
What about you, Suzie?
Repeat the question again. Greatest accomplishment.
Like, what do you think, like looking at the shul, what do you, like maybe at a lot, because you've done so much volunteer work and so many things in the shul, what do you feel really good about that you accomplished in the shul? Something that you, felt strongly about or enjoy doing?
I don't know. I mean, sometimes, again, I agree with Chaim. I don't know if pride is sort of assumes a certain ownership that you did something. So I feel pride in it. I don't know if I feel that I'm the cause of, I don't feel I'm the cause of it, but I feel pride in it. I think we're a very welcoming place. Like, I think, I feel really good that even people who are kind of shy maybe a little bit, or maybe came from communities that weren't as friendly, that they sort of take for granted that when a new person comes in, that it's their job to say hello, and that everyone feels that ownership. And I'd like to feel that we were as partners with everyone in trying to create that atmosphere. But I do feel proud. I feel proud when people come into the shul and people just go over and introduce themselves and say hello, and that people aren't anonymous. And hopefully don't stay anonymous for too long. And if they feel anonymous, then hopefully they have an ear that really hears it and wants to fix it.
So where do you see our shul in 10 years? I know that's maybe a difficult question to answer, but there's so many exciting things happening, a new building, which hopefully eventually we'll be able to get into. I know we haven't seen each other in a long time. Who knows what's going to happen for the Chagim. But in looking forward, do you have kind of a vision of where you see us, or a dream, a wish for the future, or?
Honestly, everyone, a lot of times when you speak to people in communities, the wishes for the future always seem to be around numbers, right? Like, oh, I hope we're at 500 families, 400, like it's always seemingly about numbers. And I hope that, I feel really confident that we're growing, it'd be great if we had a bigger housing market in some ways, but in other ways, I hope we grow in a way that when people come in, they feel like they're not creating a new community, but they're becoming part of one. You hear about some communities that grow very quickly, and it's almost like a new community is created, and people have been there for a while, or maybe of different generations. They don't feel connected. They don't really know each other. And we know even in our shul, as we grow, and we don't grow 60 families a year, we grow maybe 15 families a year, how hard it is to sort of keep that intergenerational and keep people feeling like they're part of something larger. I hope that wherever we are 10 years from now, that we got there as a community, not just sort of like we got this massive growth and all of a sudden now we're the new Teen Act because we have 800 families here. Like, that doesn't feel so appealing to me. I'm happy with big numbers, but I hope we get there in a way that feels like a natural growth and a connected growth, I guess.
For me, there's growth, and like Susie's describing, in simply how a community expands itself. but it's also about being a place where people are all growing. And that happens in so many fronts. And I think that we've been seeing that go on in the shul too. And it has to happen firstly on religious front. Everyone needs to be always exploring, what about my religious life is good, and where do I need to be engaged more differently in observance and study and in contemplative components and davening. So I would like to imagine a place where everyone has a sense of themselves as being on a journey. And we do it, and then we kind of take a pause. So I'd like to help us get back on that sense of the journey of the individual self, and then of the community too. I think we're also expanding our purview here in the shul in a lot of interesting, important ways over the past few years. The way we see ourselves in relation to the community around us has changed for the better. Sense of responsibility that we've kind of not taken on, and I thank the folks who helped push the Arivim drive to help us to see that happen as part of a Jewish value that we're living out as well, and one in which we're really caring for each other in deep ways. So that's, the Ksharim committee is about doing that, right? And about how we're looking after older folks and younger folks and people all in between. So for me, that would be what I want, in 10 years from now, that all those things just seem to be more intensified and stronger and more powerful along the way.
So since you have a lot of us on this, Zoom platform, is there anything that you want to leave us with? Anything that you kind of want to share with us? This is kind of very open.
Right. So I want to say I missed you all terribly, right? And we knew as we were, beginning the process of construction in the shul, which is actually going to start very, very soon, finally, that was going to be difficult because the shul was going to be, taking place in Temple Israel Center, and a lot of folks couldn't make it over there, and we'd have to have that satellite minions who were really struggling on the question, how do we feel, keep the connection going with that part of the cohort of our shul, many of you on the screen right now, because of that. Okay, I'll divide my time, and I was davening there for the first part of davening a lot, and kind of zooming over to running over to Temple Israel Center, right? Who could have imagined the degree of separation that, of course, our world has put us in? And so, what I would want to leave you with is, I miss you. I miss you in person. I miss the opportunity to give a hug and to pull down a mask, even, and just to get a smile. I have had the pleasure with a few of you already, the past 2 weeks, to do some social distance hellos and sitting down together for 20 minutes just to talk together. And I would love to do that with others. And so, actually, let me know if you a time that works for you, or I'll reach out to you as well. But that's what I want to. I would leave you with is that I miss our ability to be together. And God willing, time is not going to be like this forever. Although it seems a little longer than we would have hoped. And I also want to leave you with this picture.
This is our grandson, Aiden. He was born in COVID. This is a good thing to leave you with, right?
Yeah.
Wow, he looks like a martyr.
No, none of them look like martyrs.
No?
That's okay. That's very nice of you.
And we should think about it. We only got to hold him for the first time last week. Shira and Jason had made some social distance visits here. They actually moved in for a little bit of time before Pesach, before we got sick. But we weren't touching him. So this is like a real bracha that we have this chance. And some people haven't had that opportunity with their own grandchildren yet. So that's great.
So what I'm going to do is before I unmute everyone, I just want to say we have just an amazing, amazing community. I mean, all of us Mofia people, as you know, we've been really active, probably seeing each other more than we ever saw each other before, right? And what's so nice is we've had a couple of new people who have joined. I see you on the screen, who we haven't even met you in person yet. We've just seen you on the screen. And I love that Helen Epstein's here. Helen, I haven't seen you in years, and it's so good that you joined us, and I'm so happy you found out about this. And I think that's what's so special about this place, that everyone is just so warm and caring about each other. And doesn't forget about each other so quickly.
Yeah, I mean, like we fall short sometimes, and in honestly, I'll tell you that if you're either a person who feels that you haven't been reached out to, or you know of somebody else who could use the reach out, the best way to do it is to call up and say, Rabbi or Suzie or Judy, and make sure, hey, you let us down, and so we hear it and we try not to let you down anymore. So
if you don't feel comfortable telling them, you could tell somebody else.
That's right.
Tell them.
Actually, for a minute, Maxine is on the phone. He's not visible. Maxine, I forgot your last name, but Maxine is Debbie Glass. You moved into 30 Greenridge. I'm sorry, what is it?
It's Maxine Berghoff.
Berghoff. Okay, right. And so Maxine has come on board for one or two of our Chumash classes on Thursday morning, but she moved into 20 Greenridge. 30. And, 30, the shul's 20. And hopefully people have a chance to say hello to her too.
Yeah. And we also have Michelle Brody's parents there.
Yes,
and it's so great that they've been joining us on programs also, and we've loved getting to know you also. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to unmute everybody, but maybe I shouldn't. I see Lona kind of smiling like, oh no. Does anyone want, and I can unmute you selectively, or I think you can unmute yourself.
Norma has a question.
Anyone have a question? Norma, let me unmute you. Hold on. Okay, Norma.
Rabbi, what do you find different today being a rabbi in 2020 than when you first became a rabbi?
Good question.
You want my 2020 hindsight?
Oh.
It worked. It was yeah. So I don't know if I could, if it's a reflection on so much on the rabbinate as much as on myself, which is probably right. And look, a lot of this is we'll save for my retirement dinner. Or at some point when we do have our 25th anniversary celebration, whenever it happens. And part of it I pick up from what I said before, and I used to think that what it meant to speak into the shul was a certain way, and it's still about sharing Torah. It's always about sharing Torah. But I think about myself that I imagine the work that happens from the Bimah now very differently. And what it means that I'm engaging with all of you, whether or not you're speaking back to me, but I've come to an awareness over time about what that experience is and the encounter part of it that I think I didn't know before. I still take great pleasure in the Torah sessions that I give in the shul, and I would welcome everybody to come and engage with me that way. But I know that there are multiple ways rabbis should be and are engaging with congregants in ways I hadn't thought sufficiently about, I think, when I started off. Want to come and say hello, Noah? No. Okay.
Anybody else have something they'd like to either comment or question? Let me unmute you. Okay. We have Michelle's mom.
We know of Rabbi Marta when he was a little boy playing chess with my mother in the Adler's bungalow colony. He was maybe 6 or 7 years old. My mother loved to play chess. She never taught us to play chess. Who got to play chess with my mother? When she wanted to teach us, we were teenagers. It was too late.
Yeah, it's true. So that's because your parents and my grandparents, were both in the Albert's bungalow colony, Ferndale, for many years, and I've spent a number of summers for part of the summer in that bungalow colony. And so chess is one thing, but I also got to learn how to play rummy cub. The fierce competition that my grandparents and your parents had together.
Marilyn, let me unmute you, Marilyn.
Well, we talk about, or you were talking about what the community, the congregation, what we are or whatever. When the Rabbi and Suzie came to Florida this year in February, and we all met, and Bee Worden brought her friend, Arthur, and we all had to convince Arthur to come. He didn't want to come. Everybody said, what has he got to do with the shul? When we left, we said, what do you think? And he said, I think that you have just one great, big, happy family. And that describes our shul.
I agree.
It's so nice.
What do you say after that, Marilyn? That's so beautiful.
I cried.
Even happy families aren't happy all the time.
But you're still a family, and we're still, I mean, under the circumstances, without a home or semi-home or whatever it is, we're still a congregation. We're still a family. And I called somebody the other day who was certainly not a contemporary of mine, but I called and I said, you know, you're not my best bosom pal by any means. You're about 40 years younger than I am, but I miss you. And I called to say hello. And that's what a family does. And we've gotten calls like that.
It's so nice.
So that describes the Hebrew Institute and the leadership of the Hebrew Institute.
Thank you.
That's very nice. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments or questions or suggestions or Juana?
I want to say thank you to you. I think you've done an extraordinary job. With such hot day, you're around giving cookies to everybody. I have to thank you.
You're very welcome.
Judy,
And my driver, Mira.
Judy,
Yeah?
can I speak as well?
I have a question for Rabbi.
Okay.
Ezra wants, and also John.
Okay. Ezra, you want to go first and then John?
Okay.
It'll take a minute. A love affair going on for years. The rabbi moves into White Plains and comes with a little girl with the name of Shira. But I already had a girlfriend, Shira, which was Shira Rimsky. Anyhow, after a few weeks, school started. Somebody in kindergarten, they had to give their Hebrew names. And she just comes Shabbos to shul, puts her hands on her hips, Mr. Boykowitz, we have to talk. So I knew I'm in trouble. Take her on my lap and let's hear about stuff. I know you have a friend here, but I go to school now. And in school, I discovered that you do have your own Shira. My granddaughter's name is Shira. So what do you want? Oh, can I be your favorite? Yes, can I be your favorite? She's my favorite since then.
No wonder she wanted to give you an honor at her wedding.
That was beautiful.
That's right.
That was really beautiful.
And John?
Only person's get a standing ovation when they get called up.
I never saw that at a wedding before.
I was thinking back to when my father was a rabbi in Philadelphia and my uncle.
I can't hear.
Hard to hear you. Can try to speak right into the mic.
Yeah, is that better?
Yes, better.
I was thinking back to when I was a kid. My father was a rabbi in Philadelphia, pulpit rabbi in Philadelphia, and his younger brother was a pulpit rabbi in a number of cities, ending up in Bakersfield, California, of all places. And they told me that in their impression, a rabbi can serve a congregation of up to about 400 people. If it gets bigger than that, you really need to have an assistant rabbi. I'm curious whether you would concur with that opinion. And if we get that big, what you're going to do about it.
How many members do we have now?
We have it's around 250 families in the shul, units in the shul. That's kind of been where we've been for a long time, but it's a changed reality. Firstly, when I came to the shul, I was told a big lie about how many members we had. It was totally off. Half the people you look at this, they're not members anymore, they're not alive anymore, whatever it was. So, but the reality is, you all know was that
wasn't your fault, Jerry. You didn't lie, Jerry. You didn't lie.
You were just complicit. I think we all know that the nature of the shul has changed, and that you can have the same numbers, but you can have that early on the same numbers with an empty shul on a Shabbos, and then the same numbers later on because people are coming to shul. And so the nature of who we are now is a much more active, participating kind of community for the most part. So I don't know, magic numbers, I don't know. It's not about, rabbis looking to be the senior rabbi so they can have a junior rabbi with them or anything. There's always more that we can and should be doing in the community. And so if we had, if we certainly had, a very large number, we know that it's time we must engage somebody else to help play the role in filling all the needs. And at this point, we know what we can do and what we can't do, and so this is just fine. This is just fine. With the magic number, when we know we need to do something different, I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, thank you.
Norma?
Just one quickie. This has been very serious. I want to ask Rabbi and Suzie, besides being with your wonderful family and those delicious grandsons, what do you like to do for fun?
Oh, do you remember fun?
I don't know how to have fun.
Oh.
On the fun thing. He's working on the fun. I am so fun, by the way. He's still working on it a little bit.
Yeah.
What do we do for fun?
Nothing.
We used to go out for dinner once in a while.
What?
We used to go out for dinner once in a while.
We do. We like to eat. Eating is always fun.
You have to learn from this crowd, Chaim and Suzie, because these people who are on the Zoom, they know how to have fun. Let me tell you.
That's right. For our big anniversary, activity this past 2 weeks ago,
it was a little pathetic.
We just drove over to the river walk near in Tarrytown and took a walk over there. Had a pastrami sandwich and took a walk together. So that was our big anniversary.
It was really fun.
Now the truth is that if we hadn't, if we didn't have so many obligations around the extension to our house, I could have spent some money. But we felt trapped, so we just made a pastrami sandwich, and that was it.
He married a younger woman to keep him, young and fun. But I don't know. I think he might be failing.
But I know he told his mother that you were very young, and his mother said, "Don't worry, she'll get older."
That was my mother-in-law's famous line. He almost didn't ask me out because I was too young. She said, "Do you like her? Do you like her family?" I think she asked, "Are you attracted to her?" My mother-in-law doesn't hold back.
Never.
And he said, when she answered yes, she goes, "She'll get older." Usually when I was like 9 months pregnant and lying on the couch half, I'd say, "She got older, honey. She got older." So it's true.
Well,
my mother-in-law.
Wonderful. It's just such a
Oh, I know Jacqueline once.
with all of you and getting to know behind the Bimah with Chaim and Suzie, and I think we'll enjoy getting a little taste, and just like a little other side of the rabbi that you see when when he's not in shul, kind of get a sense of who he and Suzie are. And I hope you've enjoyed this.
And we look forward to the time we can have you back in our home, and sharing personal time with you in all the ways that we so appreciate. Thank you so much for making the time to join us, and we'll be with you for lots of other things.
Jacqueline, you can ask any questions to us privately if you want.
Well, thank you all so much.
Thank you, guys.
What a great turnout, and we'll see you at the next Mofia program as soon as we think of it.
Thank you for putting it together.
Thank you so much.
And join us for Kabbalat Shabbat on Friday night. If you're
good
really nice way to be together.
It's really lovely.
Do you hear that, everyone?
Very nice.
It's
It is. It's lovely.
emails, and definitely that's a treat.
I think I'm going to start doing that.
Yeah, it's really lovely.
Great.
Okay.
And it's not so long. They only go to L'Chato D. It's not so long.
Okay, I can even handle that. Goodbye, everyone.
Thanks, Judy. Judy, you're in charge.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much.
See ya.
Judy, are you still on the call? I wanted to ask you something.
Yes.
Okay. I am in Florida now because we can't get up to New York. So the directory that we have for Hebrew Institute is in the apartment there. Is there any way I can get another directory so I can be in touch with some of the people that I don't have phone numbers for in my cell phone?
Sure. You know what we could do? Do you have my email address?
Yeah, I have an email address. Of course.
You give me a call, and then I can send you pictures of names and phone numbers and get it to you.
I need your
Let me give you my phone number right now and call me as soon as we're finished. It's 914.
Wait a minute, 914
263.
263
Don't give this out to everyone. 1343.
1343.
I know the shoe always sends out my email address and phone number. I'm like, I don't want hundreds of people to have.
914
You guys call me. That's okay.
263 1343. Okay.
Yeah, so call me in like 5 minutes and then I can send it to you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, goodbye, everyone. I'll see you again soon. And next Wednesday, chair yoga for those of you. And for those of you who have never joined us, you got to join us. I did it from work today. It really gave me very zen mood working with abused kids. I needed it, so it was great. So see you all.
You don't want any recipes.
No,
What?
me today.
And it's just so wonderful. I'm looking at Helen Epstein, who I haven't seen in so long. It's just so wonderful. All of you.
Helen,
Hi,
it's so
Helen.
great to see you. You got to get on more of our Zooms.
Yes, for sure.
And I'm going to send you emails from now on of when we have our programs. I'm
So
going to just unmute you, Helen. Or Helen, you can unmute yourself to say hello to us. You just click on the mute button on the left side on the bottom to unmute it.
I'll unmute. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Wait,
For a second, then you muted back again.
hold on. I'm going to try to unmute you. No, it didn't work.
She has to unmute herself.
Just to do it herself. I apologize that Chaim had to go call his father, so that's why.
No, don't apologize. Helen, do you see how to do it? Just click on mute on the bottom and it will unmute. There's like a line through the mute button on the left side.
Judge Tolshin, you're looking wonderful. Thank goodness.
Thank you.
Hello there.
You too.
Well, Helen, even if
I haven't seen you so
it's so
long.
good
It's
to
so nice
see
to
you.
Hi, Helen.
I know it's hard sometimes to unmute these things. Helen, we miss you.
We miss you, Helen. We will definitely reach
At
out
the
to you.
Kiddush, when you were always like give treats to my kids during the Kiddush. Things like that. Okay, bye everyone.
See you, everyone. We're gonna.
Bye.
I love you. Thank you, everyone, so much.
Thank you so much, Suzie.
Thank you all.
Thank
Thank you, everyone.
you.